It's May 17th. I'm Ezra Levant, and you're watching Battleground. Hello, my friends. Ezra Levant is my name. I am the Rebel Commander here at the Rebel.media. Rebel Commander is just a fancy name, I say. It doesn't mean much. Super Chat is the name of what we do here. That's a fancy name for a live chat with you. The super part, I think, is when YouTube says, hey, we'll chip in a couple bucks, and your comment gets put in a bright highlighted color in the comment box, and even for like $5 or $10, whatever it is, it gets appended to the top of the box there. And that's good for me because I can see it out of the corner of my eye. And I will do my best to read any super chats, so thank you for that. I have a few things I'd like to talk about on super chats. I do them every Friday at 12 noon Eastern, which is 5 p.m. in London, England. And the reason I mention London, of all of the cities in the world, is because, as I've said before, I like to use London as my own personal dystopian time machine. I go to London and I enjoy it very much. I love the history. I love the architecture. People laugh at me when I say it, but I love the food. Well, I love the food anywhere, let's be honest. Look at me. I like it as a tourist. I like it politically. It's so interesting, even though I think the politics there are in an awful direction. Those are the things I like about it. I love the different accents, you know that. But the worst is how they are really living out Orwell's 1984. He called the UK Airstrip 1, I think, in that book. He talked about the Ministry of Truth being the propaganda ministry, the Ministry of Peace being what they called the War Ministry. That's not even ironic anymore to say those things because that's just how politicians talk. And so in the last couple of years, I didn't know the UK as anything other than as a tourist until I got to know Tommy Robinson, and I became not entangled because I could leave in any time, but interested and gravitated to Tommy Robinson and his story. The story, I think, well summed up by the name of his autobiography, Enemy of the State. You know, I don't recommend a lot of books. I recommend that book. It's written, obviously, with the help of a ghostwriter to smooth it out a bit. But it's all Tommy's story. I know some of the characters in it. It's an amazing story of what it's like to grow up in Luton, which was a very poor town, about an hour north of England, multiracial, as many poor towns are, and how everybody sort of got along. I mean, in that book, Tommy writes about his best friends from every background, including his best friends who were Muslim. I think he bought a car with them or something. But how things slowly changed as that town was Islamified, and how it changed everything, like how people got along and who could or couldn't be accepted in groups, and even how fights were fought. It wasn't like, I mean, certainly they didn't fight by, what's the phrase, Marquess of Queensberry rules. But just the gang style, and how his Muslim friends weren't really allowed to hang out with him anymore, and there was dividing lines. And how he grew up and as the Islamification continued, how the phenomenon of rape gangs, including one that immolated his own cousin, and then how he saw the politics eroding patriotism, how soldiers returning from Afghanistan were berated and abused on the street by the Muslim community, and how the police sided with the abusers, not the soldiers. And then Tommy's own story of political awakening, how he became an activist on the street, called it the English Defence League, covered his face with a mask at first. He didn't know what to do. And then became more public about it, his troubles with the law, how some of those troubles, I suppose you could say, were legit. He tells the story of how he got into a fight on the street with someone that he didn't know was an off-duty cop. And that's a very interesting and sad story, actually. I think there's one kick. He kicked a man, and I think that changed the course of his life. But it's mainly the story, as the title of the book says, The Enemy of the State, of how the British establishment has decided that they have observed all the things Tommy has observed, and they have observed all the problems that he has pointed out, but they have concluded, and perhaps they're correct, that it's easier to deal with Tommy, who's pointing out the problems, than it is to deal with the problems. It's easier to deal with the secondary issues rather than the primary issues. The secondary issue being Tommy's making a fuss. The primary issue being what the fuss is made about. And so I have come into Tommy's life late in the day. He has already been in jail several times, but not at the end of the day. When I got to know Tommy, he started to work for the Rebel, and he became a bigger and a bigger thing. He had 1 million viewers on Facebook by the end of it, almost the same on Twitter. So I saw the new chapter being waged against him, that of deplatforming and depersoning, and now prosecuting him and jailing him. As you know, we crowdfunded for his release. And so I was in London this past week, and if you're wondering why the lengthy preamble, I was in London this past week at the latest installment of Tommy's contempt of court case. And I should tell you, this is not for anything new. This is for the same incident almost exactly 12 months ago in Leeds County Court, where a rape gang of more than 24 men, almost all of them Muslim, many of them named Mohammed by chance, were convicted for having a rape gang. And by that I don't mean they were marauding on the streets, grabbing someone, raping them and running off. They were an organized crime network, really, but their crime was rape. They would exploit and entrap young girls, I think in this case as young as 11. They would trick them and trap them by saying, oh, you look nice. Would you like a candy bar? Would you like a cigarette? Would you like a sip of beer? Would you like a ride in a nice car? Would you like a boyfriend? Would you like a kiss? Would you like something? And in return, all I want is a topless selfie. Oh, now that I have that, you have to go further with me, or I will show your mom the topless selfie, and you'll be humiliated. Oh, you've had sex with me. You're a 12-year-old girl. You had sex with me. Well, now if you don't have sex with my friends, I'll tell your mom what you did. And I'm getting you hooked on drugs, and now I will rape you every single night, and you'll come to my room above a chicken shop or something, and my whole gang of friends will rape you every night as well. And I'm sorry to tell you such atrocious things, but when I say rape gang, if you're in North America, you don't understand what it means. You think it's like the gangs of New York, people stalking the streets and women saying, oh, run inside. It's not that at all. It's exploiting indigenous British girls. They're almost always working class white girls. They also are predatory against Sikh girls because there's an Islamic element to it, as Majid Nawaz, the Pakistani Muslim leader of the Quilliam Foundation, points out. More than 80% of the men convicted of being in these grooming gangs are Muslim of Pakistani origin. That is statistically impossible to happen if it were random. So that's why Tommy's in trouble, because he talks about these things, and isn't it hard to talk about? It's hard to hear about them. It's harder to talk about them. Of course, the hardest thing is that they're happening, but the police won't deal with that, so they prefer to deal with the man who talks about them. Tommy was outside a court case where more than 24 men were convicted of that, but because he uttered their names in public, he was thrown in prison for 10 weeks. He's actually thrown in prison for 13 months, till the Court of Appeal released him. But he was back in court on Tuesday in the Old Bailey, the most serious criminal court in the land. And the Attorney General, that is the political appointee, the head of the Justice Ministry in the UK, has directed his lawyers to prosecute Tommy again for the same offense. It's not, I don't think that's the right word. But they're prosecuting Tommy for contempt of court. Now, a year has passed, so we know certain things now that we didn't know a year ago. So, for example, we know that by reporting outside the court and naming the criminal accused who were convicted that day, Tommy did not disrupt the trial. How could he? The jury were done their deliberations. It was Judgment Day. How could that possibly disrupt the trial? Tommy had no secret information. He had not been in the trial. He was outside giving his political commentary. Tommy read the names of the accused men, but he read them from a government website called the BBC. Nothing made sense about his conviction back then, but you could say perhaps he did jeopardize the trial, but in fact it did not happen. The judge in the trial himself said it did not interfere with the trial. One of the rapists appealed, saying that Tommy interrupted the trial, and a high court judge said no, that didn't happen. It is a legal fact. It is a finding of fact that Tommy did not disrupt the trial. So why would he be prosecuted again in the year 2019? Why would he be prosecuted at all? Why would he be prosecuted again if he served 10 weeks in solitary confinement, which in itself is illegal? Why would he be prosecuted? What's the public interest in prosecuting him now, him having wrongfully served a term in prison? when we now know that for certain that there was no disruption of the trial, why would he be prosecuted again? Well, the Attorney General had an answer for that. And what I'm about to tell you, you may find fantastical or hard to believe, but I swear on a stack of Korans, it's true. I was there with myself. I saw it with my eyes and heard it with my ears. I was in the court, not 20 feet away from the Attorney General's lawyer when he said so. The Attorney General's lawyer, acting on instructions from Jeffrey Cox, the appointee of Theresa May, said, I swear to God, that Tommy Robinson must be prosecuted. It is in the public interest to prosecute him yet again and perhaps imprison him. They weren't talking about sentences yet. Because, and can we, I wonder if that footage is available of when Tommy accosts the rapist going in. I wonder, yeah. So remember, he was outside the courthouse in Leeds for 75 minutes talking on his phone, by himself most of the time, 75 minutes. And when he was there, a couple of the Muslim accused showed up for their judgment day. And they showed up with what's called a prison bag. I didn't know such a thing existed. A prison bag is what you take to court on the day that the judgment will be rendered. I see the super chats there. I'll come back to them. Thank you for those. A prison bag is when you bring, I don't know, your toothbrush, your toothpaste, deodorant, underwear, t-shirts, because if you're convicted, you will go straight from the court to the prison. So it's your bare essentials. So these accused rapists who were convicted hours later were showing up in court with their prison bags, and Tommy was accosting them as they went in. Now, by accosting them, I don't mean he touched them physically. He did not block them. I think the word heckled them would be accurate. He heckled them. He bantered with them, if you want to be light about it. And they bantered back, by the way. One of them said something outrageous about Tommy's mom or Tommy's wife or something, I can't recall. If I recall, Tommy called them accused rapists. He didn't call them rapists yet. They had not yet been convicted. That would happen moments later. So it was the contention of the Attorney General of the United Kingdom on Tuesday in the Old Bailey High Court in Courtroom 2, in front of a two-panel judge, that Tommy ought to be prosecuted yet again for contempt of court a year ago. Not because he disrupted the trial in any way, not because he endangered the administration of justice, not because he interfered, but because, I swear to God, in the mind of the United Kingdom's Attorney General, Tommy caused stress to these rapists, these child rapists, these serial child rapists, these extorters and exploiters of young girls as young as 11, because Tommy heckled them for 30 seconds as they walked in. That's contempt of court for which Tommy must be tried yet again and perhaps serve more time in prison. That, I swear to you, is what I witnessed with my own eyes as I heard the Attorney General's lawyer say it in the Old Bailey. And as sure as night follows day, the judges of the Old Bailey returned shortly thereafter with their ruling that Tommy will in fact stand trial yet again for contempt of court. And this time, it's not because he interfered, but because he was mean to child rapists. I swear to God, that's what happened. Now, I want to show you the interaction. I want you to know that when I say that he did not physically touch them, that I'm not lying to you. I want you to know that he heckled them and he was rude to them, as I think one ought to be to child rapists. But I want to show you. Do we have the clip? So it's a my friends in the control room are finding just a moment. It's a 75-minute. It's when they come in. It's brief. Yeah, you'll have to scroll through it. So let me know when you find it. It's a 75-minute video they're looking through. Now, I should tell you, if it's not already obvious, and maybe you know this, that when Tommy was convicted a year ago, as you surely know, it was a drumhead trial, as they say. It was a summary trial, as they say. It wasn't even a proper trial, as the Court of Appeal later ruled. It was less than 10 minutes. It was done speedily so that the judge could go to lunch. It was done so quickly that Tommy himself did not have one word he was asked to say, done so quickly that Tommy did not have time to consult with his own lawyer, or let alone an expert lawyer in the arcane rules of contempt of court. That's how quickly it happened. Less than 10 minutes. And you might say, less than 10 minutes, but how could that be? Because the live stream in question, for which he was convicted and sentenced and packed off to jail in a course of minutes, it was a 75-minute live stream. So how could the judge in question review a 75-minute live stream in a 10-minute trial? And if you were to point that out, as a simple child could do, you would have given the matter more thought than did the judge that day in Leeds. And the thing is, things ought to be given thought when a man's liberty turns in the balance. Tommy was packed off to prison. He was sentenced for 13 months. We sprung him after 10 weeks through your crowdfunding. But imagine packing a man off to prison in less than 10 minutes without even watching the matter that you are so upset about. 10 weeks he served in solitary, and yet the Attorney General wants him back again. They no longer make the case that he was disrupting the court. They're just saying he was mean to child rapists. Let me ask you, would you be mean to, if you knew that someone had raped girls? And I'm saying girls, that's not a way of saying young women. I'm saying these were minor children, some of tender years. And when I say raped, I don't mean raped once and left in an alley. I mean raped nightly. I've read horrific stories out of the United Kingdom about girls who were so trapped by this exploitation that one of them on purpose did a swan dive off the balcony to crack her head on the sidewalk so she could go to the hospital rather than be forced to go with these men every night. I read another case about a girl who set her own family house on fire so they would have to move. That's how horrific it is. These girls are actually, technically, theologically, taxonomically, Islamic rape slaves. And Islam plays a role. Not only is it the ethnic identity of the rapists, but it's the justification in many of these trials. Because, of course, the Quran does permit rape slaves. How are we doing? We got it. All right, I want to show you from Tommy's live stream a year ago, his I haven't watched this in a while, so I don't recall it exactly. So let's watch it together, and you tell me. These men were on their judgment day. They had their prison bags because they were indeed going off to prison. They had raped young girls of tender years countless times. They were monsters. They were monsters. And this is what Tommy did. And this is what Tommy will be prosecuted for on July 4th. Take a look.
Hey there, mate. What are you in court for today, if you don't mind me asking?
I've been seeing your mum.
You've been seeing my mum. Another comment about a woman. What are you in court for, mate? How's the trial gone? How's the trial gone? Yeah, how's the trial gone? We just. How's the trial gone, bro?
I'm the one in court.
You're the one in court, are you? Why is he carrying your bag then? Anyway. Another comment about your mum. That's every single...
I think there was another incident that was very similar, but you can see what was happening there. That was one of the rapists. That was one of the monsters. Actually, the girls gave these men nicknames. And one of them was something like monster. You can imagine how depraved they were. Anyone who rapes an 11-year-old girl is a monster. There may be some other clips. If you can find another one, show me. Because again, I want to show my viewers that I'm not withholding anything. I haven't watched this video in a while. Did Tommy raise his voice? No, he did not. Did Tommy curse at them? No, he did not. I think in another one he raised his voice a bit, but here, our producer has the next clip ready to roll. This is on the day in question. Take a look.
Publicise anything? I'm publicising. Yeah. No, is that with... Oh yeah, you're not allowed to publicise the verdict? No, the pictures. Oh, the pictures? Yeah, and the names. Yeah, but every pictures and names are out there though. Pictures and names, yeah, you're allowed to. Every other person who goes to court gets their picture and name publicised, don't they? Oh, he hasn't got a prison bag. He must be a friend. Or him. What? What was it? Which one? Oh, mate, what are you in court for?
Fuck yourself.
What's that? What are you in court for? What? Come on, mate.
Assault,
Why did you just touch him?
Come on,
I have no right to do that.
It's an assault.
He had no right to put his hand on him then.
If I put my hand on him, would I have been arrested? Just serious question.
What, if you put your hands on him?
If I put my hand on him, would I be arrested? If I pushed him? If the next one who comes up, if I walk up to him and push him, will you arrest me? Will you?
Give you a warning.
You'll give me a warning? You didn't give him a warning.
I can see it.
You didn't see it? Did you see it?
No, I didn't.
You didn't see it either? No?
You weren't very close to me.
No, I weren't. No, I'm as close as I am to you. You're not pushing me.
So did you see what happened there? And it's good. I watched this when it happened in real time, believe it or not. And as you know, Tommy used to work for us here at the Rebel, and he had a close encounter with contempt of court in a city called Canterbury. And we immediately rushed and we got him out of jail within 13 hours. We just went full tilt, got him out. And then, as you may know, we set up a legal briefing, like a training session for Tommy and his cameramen and producers in the UK, with a very prestigious firm called Kingsley Napley. You can Google it. Why don't you Google Kingsley Napley, just to show how fancy the firm is. And I was there. I flew in for it. I wanted to learn also because I have a law degree here in Canada, but of course the law in the UK is slightly different. Maybe very different. So I wanted to know. So I attended this session, and there were a lot of lawyers there. And the analogy I have is like a racing car when it pulls into the pit stop. Someone goes in with the gas, someone changes the tires, someone wipes the windshield, and this whole team works on the car, and then the cars get put in the race. It was like that, except for it wasn't speedy. You had like this very senior firm. There, yeah, Kingsley Napley. Go to, it's just a very senior firm. I won't even bore you with who the lawyers were, but that's the law firm. So we were in the boardroom. They brought in sandwiches, very important to me. There were a bunch of us, and we just learned all the possible do's and don'ts of being a citizen journalist in the UK. And Tommy was engrossed, I should tell you. He was extremely engaged because every single situation that could come up, he had already lived it. So he was asking, well, what about this, or what about that, or if I did this? So you can see that there. And the reason I tell you about Kingsley Napley is you can see it there. He did not follow them up the steps of the court, did he? No, he did not. He stayed on the street and the sidewalk, did he? Yes, he did, because he did not film on the precincts. He didn't touch the men. But you saw he said to the cop, if I touch them, what would you do? I'll give you the warning. Well, why didn't you warn him when he touched me? You'll notice that, and I was watching this from Canada, and I must tell you I was tense, because I thought, what are you doing, mate? This is what you got nicked for back in Canterbury, bruv. But do you see how careful he was? He did not go on the property. He was talking to the police. What if this? What if that? Am I here? Okay. And I should tell you that in the course of the 75-minute broadcast, he was constantly sort of pinging police to make sure he wasn't offside. Are there any more interactions? Or I don't need to show any more. I think there might have been one or two more. Don't even. I'm done. We've shown two. They're all in a similar vein. My point is, Tommy doesn't touch anyone. He might have sworn in one of them, I can't recall. They swore at him or said something about his mother or his wife, I can't recall. Could you imagine? Oh, there's one more, and I think this one might be the spiciest actually going from memory. So play the last one.
The man up there threatened to kill you.
Yeah. And I just said I had nothing to do with it.
Officer, did you hear that? So a man just made threats to kill her. The Muslim man there.
If I did that, I'd be locked up for it.
And you're innocent. You're just.
I'm nothing to do with it.
There's nothing. Yeah.
I don't even know who I am.
So this is just a lady standing outside court, and the Muslim men who are all at the window are telling her she's dead. Of course. Am I that way, lads and ladies? Oh, mate, how you doing, you all right?
Your wife's a prostitute.
My wife's a prostitute. My wife's a prostitute. My wife's a prostitute. All of the remarks so far have been sexual.
So you see there, what are you here for, mate? What are you doing, mate? And it's the rapist who says your wife's a prostitute. And as Tommy points out, all of their insults are sexual in nature. Of course, they're rapists. These are people who rape every night of their life. So that's their world, and they've gotten away with it. So would you say that Tommy in any of these videos assaults any of these men, batters any of these men, even defames these men, provokes these men, and in the 3 clips I've shown you, does he even swear at these men? The answer to all those questions is obviously no. I think there might have been one where there was some more lively banter, but don't even bother looking for it. They're all in the same vein. You'll notice he doesn't follow them. He doesn't touch them. He doesn't block them. How many clips have we shown? 3 or 4? I can't remember. 3. I tell you, I'm an eyewitness. I was there in court. There will be a written record to confirm it if you're a skeptic. I tell you that the centrality of the case of the Attorney General is that for those interactions, and there may have been 1 or 2 more like them, that Tommy Robinson is in contempt of court, should be prosecuted again, and quite possibly imprisoned again for what I just showed you. Don't tell me this isn't a stitch-up. I just showed you 3 clips. You can find, you know what? You can find that on the YouTubes. You can watch the whole thing. All right, there's some super chats. Let me catch up. Amanda Palermo, $2. Thank you very much. Proud Boys Calgary, thank you. Primpal 08, $10. The UK is not the UK anymore. This is the globalist socialist UK. People will no longer be citizens. They'll be subjects or slaves. There's a lot of truth to that. Unnerving. Do something a judge doesn't like and they can toss you in jail. Looks like it. Berserka, Australia to go to the polls tomorrow. Who you voting for? Well, thank you, my friend. I was asked this question last week, and I failed to have anything intelligent to say. I simply don't have enough bandwidth to follow everything that I would like to in the depth I would like to. As my attentions have been mainly on the Canadian political scene, we had a recent election in Newfoundland yesterday, in Alberta a month ago. And of course, the Tommy situation. I regret I have not given Australia the attention it deserves. So I'm sorry I don't have a useful answer for you. Ole Larsen, 200 Danish kroner. Korans are burning in Denmark. That may be the case. But I think Western civilization is burning. All right. So was that the Proud Boys one? I think I read it. I didn't read the comments. All right, I'll dig that up. Here we go. Unnerving, do something a judge doesn't like, they can toss you in jail. Yeah, I did read that. All right, so thank you for that. Why am I telling you that? And I've used up half the show and I haven't told you any news. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 videos here. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about what I saw in London. And I'm going to tell you one more thing from the court before I show you. I'm going to show Jessica's video. And I'm going to show TommyReports.com. So I told you I was sitting there in the court. It was not a long hearing. I was straining to hear because it was unamplified, so I was leaning forward. There was a slight accent. The accent wasn't a problem for me, but it was dense legalese. I was straining to hear, and I was live tweeting from the court, as I have done many times before. And in the Old Bailey, which is a very high security court, I have figured out how to operate in there. I talk to the security bosses weeks in advance to let them know I'm coming. I give them my credentials. I present at least an hour early at the court. I take it extremely seriously because if I'm going to come all the way from Canada, you're darn straight I want to make sure every box is checked. I don't want any reason. I even always these days I fly in the night before just in case my flight is late. I don't want to arrive in the morning and have the potential. So there's nothing in my life I'm more meticulous about besides getting into this courtroom. And so I'm there. You're bloody right I'm paying close attention. Because it's an important thing. As I say, a man's life hangs in the balance. So I'm straining to listen, and I'm typing on the live tweeting, and I'm doing my best to be accurate, and I'm always worried that I maybe misheard something because he's referring to documents I don't have in front of me. So and the judges are paying very close attention as they are paid to do, and as they do as the essence of their job, to pay very close attention. You can't doze off if you're a judge. You can't start daydreaming because you've got to listen, because maybe the lawyer is saying something that could convict a man or free a man. You've got to listen. So I'm listening, and the judges are listening, and Tommy's listening, and the public gallery is listening, and all the lawyers are listening. Tommy had 1, 2, 3 lawyers. The Attorney General, he probably had someone there. I didn't count everybody. It was just, everyone's listening. I'm listening and trying to type something smart. And then someone hands something to the judge, a clerk or an usher hands something to the judge. The judges stand up and leave abruptly. For half a second, I thought there's a security issue. But I thought, no, we're like in a bunker here. And I go over and I talk to Tommy's lawyer, John Carson. I said, what's going on? He said, I don't know. And I just had this inkling, this little inkling, because I've seen the dystopian future of the UK, and I've been to Tommy's trial in Peterborough when the judge didn't like my live tweeting. And so I thought, well, you know what? I've dealt with the head of security, dealt with the deputy head of security, I dealt with the assistant deputy security, I dealt with the clerk, I dealt with the usher. In the past, I've dealt with the judge. So I know I'm kosher. But I just said to Tommy's lawyer, John, I said, do you think it's because I'm live tweeting? And I was embarrassed to even ask him that, because I thought, not everything's about you, Ezra. Stop being so vain. It's not your trial, shut up. But I had this little germ in me that was like, this is why. And my spider said, I thought, can it be? Like, who handed the note to the judge, and why did they bolt from the room like that? Like, what's going on? And I thought about it, and I went to a clerk. A clerk is like an assistant to a judge. It's like a helper outer. There's different kinds of clerks. Maybe it was an usher, I don't know. And I said, why did the judges leave? I said, it's not because I'm tweeting, is it? I said this to the clerk. And she said, yes, it is. I said, well, ma'am, I checked with him, and I checked with her, and I checked with him, and I checked with her, and I did it before, and I'm following the rules, and please go tell the judges this, and if the judges want me to go to their private chambers, I'm happy to go and bend the knee. I am not here to interfere. I'm here to report, following the rules. Done it many times before. I'm shocked. I'm actually embarrassed that I'm interfering in such a grave matter. I said, please go back to the judges' chambers, tell them Ezra Levant, the person who was tweeting, believes he's in compliance, has complied with all the rules he's been told, wants to assure her, there's 2 judges, a guy and a gal, wants to assure the judges that I am in compliance, and I'll bend the knee, to use that phrase. So she did. She went back to the judges. And I said, I'll go there. If they want me to go there and meet me in person and grill me, I don't know. I said, yeah, because I'm not looking to stink up the joint. So the clerk goes out, and the clerk comes back, and the clerk says to me, yeah, okay, I told you, and you're fine. I'm fine? Okay, well, I knew I was fine, right? Because I'd done this before. And I'm a stickler. I mean, I'm stubborn, and I'm like a rebel and a troublemaker in other circumstances, but I'm at the heaviest, gravest court in the UK, the Old Bailey, where it's like high security, and you got to be on a list, and compliance. Oh, believe me, I'm not coloring outside the lines there. So I was nervous, but I thought, I got nothing to be nervous about. I'm like a schoolboy here. And I go to the clerk, and the clerk goes and checks with the judge. The clerk comes back and says, you're fine. And the judges come back out and say, it's been brought to our attention there was some live tweeting. This is permitted. And I think she referred to some like 2011 case law or something, and said it's fine. And then she made a reference to being a registered journalist. And we don't have journalism licenses in Canada. It's not a thing here. We have this thing called free speech they used to have in the UK. But in any event, I did credential myself with security. I've credentialed, as in I've proven to them who I am. And as you know, I brought other reporters with me, and I, in advance, had all their editors confer, like I say, make a list, check it twice. So we got back to the trial. But you understand what I'm saying? The entire trial was disrupted for, I don't know, it felt like for ages. It was probably only 5 or 10 minutes. There were probably 5 or 10 staff. Let's see, 2 judges, there's probably 7 or 8 staff in the room. Probably the same number of lawyers and junior lawyers. And all the other people. And this court, where Tommy's life, or at least his liberty, is held in the balance, where we were all engrossed in a lawyer's presentation, we were all listening carefully, and some journalist with the media party was following me on his phone, was furious that I was saying what I was saying, and had the audacity to tattle, to snitch, to call over a clerk and say, give this to the judge, to interrupt a judge with a tattle. Ezra's tweeting. And to break the trial. And the judge came back and said, yeah, it's fine, let's get back to it. First of all, I'm sorry, that disrupted a trial. Tommy Robinson didn't disrupt a trial. That media party, I don't know which one it was. Whoever it was, how's that not contempt of court? How's that not meddling with the trial? Tommy was just talking to the thugs as they went in. Nothing to do with the trial. And he's being but it's not just the audacity to think that they had standing to interrupt a trial. What were they trying to do? If I were in contempt, that by tweeting, I would be the one on the docket. And as you know, Andrew Lawton, who was there last year, and they didn't recognize him, and when I say they, I mean the other reporters, they said, because they didn't know he was my friend, they said Ezra should be charged with hate speech for his coverage of Tommy's trial. So these journalists are not actually journalists, they're anti-journalists, they're unjournalists, they're censors. Instead of doing what I was doing, I was straining to listen to every word that was said by the judges, said by the Attorney General, said by Tommy's lawyers. I was doing my best to listen to the trial. They weren't. They were following me. Apparently, my point of view is more interesting than the breaking news in front of them. And stopping me from tweeting is more important than them doing their own journalism. And interrupting a trial and trying to get me held in contempt, they thought that was appropriate. And the judge smacked them down. But that's their essence. And one of these journalists, Dominic Casciani of the BBC, called me over and tried to lecture me. And I know him because he works for the state broadcaster over there. He literally contacted the London police last time to make a complaint about me for being in contempt last time too. That's the state of the United Kingdom. All right, so it's 12:39, and I haven't even shown you what I meant to show you. I was there for a couple days. Really just half a day in advance, the day of Tommy's trial. Had dinner with some friends up in Luton. I came down to the city, met some folks, and then I flew home. But one of our young reporters, Jessica Swiatkowski, if I'm saying that right, was there with me in court, and she's staying on for the duration of Tommy's election campaign. So she's based in Manchester now, and every day, go to TommyReports.com, every day she files videos to TommyReports.com. Just scroll down a bit. So that's Jessica there. And she's doing vids, you know, that's from Carlisle, and you can see more vids. There's got to be more vids, as I know she's done a bunch of vids. Anyways, I want to show you, I want to show two different things. I want to show when she tries to interview the aunties, and then there's Tommy complaining about the 38 cops. I think I don't know if that's in the same video. Do you know those two parts? Okay, so let's start by looking at, so Jessica's up there, and she works for the Rebels, so like me, she's sympathetic to Tommy, but she's a journalist. She's not working for Tommy's campaign, she's not staying with Tommy's campaign, she's not being paid by Tommy's campaign. She works for the Rebels, she's being crowdfunded by Rebels. Is she sympathetic to Tommy? Sure she is. And of course in the UK that just means covering Tommy honestly. So Jessica was at this street event in Carlisle, or someplace, maybe not Carlisle. and talk to the Tommy people. And then I said, like I gave her advice, instructions. I said, talk to the people who like Tommy, talk to the people who don't like Tommy, and tell our viewers the facts, just the facts, follow the facts where they lead. Just ask questions. You know, who, where, when. So look what happened. Look at the police. Take a look. All right, we'll try that again when we get the audio. But, all right, so just let me know when we got that going. Now, I don't know, so she was, I'll just tell you, she was stopped from interviewing people who were hostile to Tommy. And if I was watching that right, the reason she was stopped is because the police thought that would be inflammatory, I think. But if you're at a protest, presumably you want people to see your protest, and you're happy to talk. And of course, if they don't want to talk, they don't have to talk to you. No one forcing you to talk. And I know Jessica fairly well, and she would just say, "Why are you here?" And maybe she would ask gently prodding questions to elicit more of an answer. But okay, let's play it now. Take a listen.
Sorry? Can you just go back past the corner of officers for me, please? Can I talk to the protesters?
No, from behind the colleagues you can, yeah.
But why I can't ask them a question?
From behind my colleagues there you can, yeah. We're just keeping the groups separately to prevent any issues.
I wouldn't be able to catch the audio from so far away.
Right, well, that's what we're doing. So if you can just go back behind my colleagues for me.
So I can't talk to the protesters?
Them from there, yeah. It's not fair to antagonise people from each line, so we're not letting them past us and we're not letting you past them. That's just.
I'm not taking any sides. I'm talking to everyone
I'm
around
not
here.
suggesting you are. I'm just asking if you go past my colleagues. Okay.
Thanks.
Now, I'm a little bit more aggressive, and I'm a little bit older, and maybe I'm a little bit dumber. So I would have said, no, I'm a journalist. I'm going to go do the journalism, and you can arrest me if you want. Maybe I'm just talking tough. Maybe I wouldn't have said that. But she's a journalist. She wasn't a protester. She wasn't carrying a sign. She wasn't taunting anyone. She's a journalist, and the cop said, no, you can't. What would have happened if she would have done that? Would she have been arrested? Maybe I'm talking tough. Maybe I wouldn't have. I think she had just the right tone, actually, don't you? I think maybe I would have either become a hothead or something. If some cop would have said, you can't talk to them, interview them from there because we're keeping the two sides separate. So you're saying I'm like, that's censorship, that's bullying, that's partisan policing. Do you think they would ever tell the BBC that? No, because the BBC is on narrative. Now, there was another event though, and there's so many events there. I'm not over this, so I'm not keeping good track. But Tommy went to a town. He's got this little truck with a little billboard on the back, and he just parks it and he talks to people and gives a little speech, and he moves on. It's pretty much how they campaign in the UK. It's such a small country geographically that there's not a lot of jetting around. In Canada, second largest country in the world, you can't tour Canada in a bus. You can do certain parts in a bus, but then you got to take a jet. I mean, it's 5 hours to fly from Toronto to Vancouver. It would take days by bus. So in Canada and the United States, very large countries, there's campaign planes. There are buses too. In the UK, it's almost all buses. Double-decker buses, they're all tricked out in party colors, they're labeled or wrapped, as they say. So that's Tommy's version of that. And in this town, and I'm not sure if it was Carlisle or someone else, the police simply would not let Tommy drive his little vehicle lawfully into the town. They just wouldn't let him. Do we have that vid? Okay, take a look.
No, but I know they've got them at look how many police officers are. Look, all the police officers. What are you filming?
We're just filming yourselves, guys, that's all.
Why are you filming?
Exactly the same reason you're filming us.
No, I'm filming you now. Because
Yeah,
you're
so
filming.
exactly the same as what you're filming us. So that's
What's the
filming you.
reason?
The reasons are on that bit.
So you're filming. Why are you filming me? For the prevention of crime. You're filming me for the prevention of crime. Can you explain? You've got 38 officers in this small square.
There's a few more things on that list.
Do you not get any crime in Carlisle? Is there no crime? Can you explain?
there's crime in Carlisle.
So why are 38 police officers here for me walking around talking to people? Can we find out why the
Right,
police
so
doing
I
it?
spoke to our chief inspector,
Yep.
okay, who is our silver commander, and he's told us that we have the power to prevent anyone parking in a restricted area, which that is, as we explained, Tommy, it's disabled only, and that's what we're doing today, and that's why the police officers were there.
And that's for
to prevent-
everybody.
That's for everybody,
Is
he
it?
said, yes.
What about the van that's down there? What about the other car? What about my car there?
The only other thing I can say to you is when I question things like that, the chief inspector said that if you wanted to make a complaint, make one direct to him through the proper channels.
What police law is it that you're using to do that? Do you know?
Regulations under the Road Traffic
Traffic
Act, yeah.
So how come you're not stopping any other cars coming in? Any other cars?
I'm not down there at present, so I
Okay,
can't.
so your
I can't
police
comment on that.
officers are all around the whole town,
Yeah.
the whole town centre. They're positioned at every entrance and road into the town centre. And everywhere we try to drive, they stand in the road,
Right.
they literally stand in the road and say, you're not allowed to drive down here. Yeah? What police law am I breaking if I drive down there?
As I've just said, what the regulations of the Road Traffic Act.
And what happens then? So if a car drives down there, what happens?
They get a fine.
A fine.
Yeah.
So what police? What law where the police block the road? Because it's not a police criminal offence, is it?
But we've
So
got
so-
a duty. We've got a duty to prevent things from happening.
But it's not a crime. It's not a criminal offence.
It's not a recordable offence, correct? But it's still an offence under the Road Traffic Act.
So it's enforceable by the police to stop a car parking on a double yellow line.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We can't, in good conscience, stand and watch something happen that shouldn't happen.
No. And if someone does,
Then we'll step in.
you step in. And it's a standard procedure.
I don't know if you can understand the accents. The police were blocking him. He said, why? Well, because things could happen that shouldn't happen. Now, I should tell you, he took our microphone. Now, Tommy doesn't work for us, and that was not his microphone. I said to him, what are you doing with our microphone? And he said he was so mad, he sort of grabbed the mic and said, I'm going to talk to them. And I said, well, you can't do that. You can't use our microphones. We like you, but you do your thing, and we'll report on you. But he just grabbed the mic, and I thought, I want to show that footage. Basically, 38 police officers were sent there to stop him. And you saw him press them. Why aren't you stopping other cars? What did we do wrong? Nothing, but something might happen. So I told you what it was like in court, where 100% of the journalists are against Tommy, and they were trying to get me jailed. Dominic Casciani literally called the cops. Another reporter, it might have been Dominic, it might have been someone else, interrupted the trial because I was tweeting, implying I was in contempt of court and that I should be jailed. So that's the media, rotten to the core. Not a single member of Parliament has ever said anything in support of Tommy's civil liberties. I'm not saying they have to agree with him, but just in his civil liberties. And there you see the police, 38 of them, tasked with stopping his campaign. There was no protest there. There was nothing. There was no peace to keep there. And then, of course, you saw the police stopping Jessica. That's the United Kingdom. So when I tell you I have my own personal dystopian time machine, by flying to London 7 hours, I can see the dark future. Do you understand what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I love the UK. I love the little things about it, and I love the big things about it. But you see what I mean when I tell you I see the future. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a seer. I just am observing a country that's further down the road than we are. It's 12:50. Let me catch up with some super chats. We've got about 10 more minutes. MVP, you're exposing the media's shameful bias. Yes, thank you. Proud Boys Calgary. Ezra intimidating the dirty smear merchants. James Kayard, Ezra, I want to shake your hand. Avi's a boss. Yeah, Avi's great. He's high energy. He's not afraid of anything. KP, $10. Your new reporters are great. Love the show, Ezra. Thanks for doing real journalism. Thank you for saying that. There's one more. Novella Nerney, good work, considering all of you mostly are tied up by leftist zealots to a point. Love K. Bexit's work too. Thank you. All right. Well, I have some other videos. We showed the. Oh, you know what? Let's see. We got 9 minutes. I don't think I want to shift to Canadian politics. I just don't think there's enough time. There's a British facial recognition vid. Let's show that. It's 2 minutes, right? So I want to show you a vid, and surprisingly, it's on the state broadcaster because they love this sort of thing. And it's sort of self-explanatory. It's a little shareable vid. Do you think we should play the whole thing? It's 2 minutes. Do you think there's a problem playing a YouTube vid on a YouTube? All right, go ahead and play it. So here's a vid I spotted on.
Don't push me over when I'm looking down the street. How would you like it if you walk down the street and someone's back? Hold yourself down, you're going ankle. That's you. You would like it, would you? What do you mind your neck?
What's your suspicion?
The fact that he walked past clearly.
I would do the same. I would do the same.
Gives us grounds to stop.
No, it doesn't.
The chap told me down the road, he said he got facial recognition. So I walked past like that. It's a cold day as well. As I've done that, the police officers asked me to come to him, so I've got me back up. I said to him, off, basically. I said, I don't want my face shown on anything. If I want to cover my face, I cover my face. It's not for them to tell me not to cover my face. I've got a now £90 fine. There you go, look at that. Thanks, Lex, £90. Well done.
So let me just tell you what you saw there if you didn't get it. So cops say, we're just going to scan every single human being who walks by. We're going to scan your face, we're going to ID you, we're going to run you by a database. We'll arrest you if we think you did something wrong, but it's basically a search of you that is done by remote. Normally to search a guy, you call them over, you ask them, give me your wallet, give me your papers. As they say, you know, in every World War II movie, Papieren bitte. Give us your, like it was the SS, it was what the Stasi said. Give us your papers, where are your papers? And of course, if there's no probable cause, you can't just search someone. That's the whole Magna Carta. You have to have probable cause, you have to have something. And in the past, you had to stop someone and they could say, are you arresting me or am I free to go? In Canada, I think you have to tell the cops your name. I think. I've forgotten my criminal law. But what this is this is a warrantless search because technology allows a search of you without engaging you. And one man, who seems like a good bloke, a proper geezer, doesn't want to be searched. So he says, all right, I'm just going to put my sweater up, and the cops say, we'll fine you for that because you have to submit to our illegal search or it's illegal for you. We don't have to follow the law, but you do. And they touch him and they push him around and they search him. And the obvious question is, do you think they do that for women wearing a face-obscuring burqa? Nah, mate, I don't think so. It's 12:55. I see another super chat here. Let me find it. Primpal 8, Chinese-style surveillance to go along with Chinese-style censorship, globalism in action. Yeah, that's the thing. It's all linked up, isn't it? I remember the golden age of the internet, when the internet was the place to get around the state, where it was the free place, where it was the dissident place, it was the anything's possible place. When Google actually used to say, don't be bad or don't be evil, remember that? When anything was possible. Now, that's being colonized by the state, or merged. I'm not sure who has colonized whom. If Facebook has colonized politicians, or if they've colonized it. It's, I think, what we would call a symbiosis. And do you doubt? I mean, I don't know if you can find the headline. It's just a website. The CIA's $600 million contract with Amazon. When you know every consumer preference about 1 billion people, in the case of Facebook, 2 billion people, you don't think the government's interested in that? You don't think there's some deal? You don't think that's harvested? I mean, we saw how politics and businesses can do that. You know, those online quizzes. Which Game of Thrones character are you? Which character from Friends are you? Which character from Third Rock from the Sun are you? And you take this quiz. Oh, wasn't that fun? I'm Cersei Lannister. Yeah, mate. You've just answered a psychological profile for some advertiser. That's what the whole Cambridge Analytica thing was about. Yeah, look at this. This is from The Atlantic. The details about the CIA's deal with Amazon, a $600 million computing cloud built by an outside company, is a radical departure for the risk-averse intelligence community. Yeah, the thing is, when you give $600 million to Amazon and probably other things that are not disclosed, and then you say, hey, can you just tell me everything about everyone? And they do, and you have a special legal exemption. You know, the Pentagon gives you some executive promise that you won't be in trouble for it. Do you think all these photo apps, like I know I'm sounding a conspiracy theorist, but it's not a conspiracy theory if it's proven to be true. We know that all those personality quizzes on Facebook that are so much fun to take, we know that was Cambridge Analytica building psychographic profiles of voters. So if you think someone running for president does that, do you doubt the CIA, the FBI, MI5, whatever, Scotland Yard, you doubt they're doing it? Do you doubt all these photo apps? If you read the terms of service, we went through this last week, didn't we? If you read the terms of service on Instagram, you still own your photo, but you grant a license of it to Instagram, and they can do what they want with it. Do you doubt that Instagram has shared every single face with probably the United States, probably the United Kingdom? I don't know. Do you think China would say, here's $1 billion, give us that? Or they wouldn't even have to ask. They would just sort of hack it. I mean, China is big into tech. They have this state-controlled company called Huawei. Again, this sounds conspiratorial, but then you see that, well, actually, Amazon does have a $600 million deal with the CIA, and harvesting the psychographic data is not a theory. That's actually what Cambridge Analytica did. And if they did it once, do you think maybe they did it for another client, and maybe do you think others did it too? And do you think Facebook and Zuckerberg simply, I didn't know what they were doing? Is that credible, or is Occam's razor the simplest answer that no, they're all in on it? That's the world we live in. It's shocking when we see it on the streets as we do with Tommy Robinson. It's less shocking but more dangerous when it's so silent you don't even notice it. But suddenly your favorite Facebook page is gone, your favorite Twitter person, James Woods on Twitter, I used to follow him. Is he even alive anymore? I don't know. On that dystopian, unhappy note, let me wish you a great weekend. In Canada and other jurisdictions, a great long weekend. I have a show tonight at 8 p.m. where I talk about the Christchurch Call, as it's called, a censorship document led by New Zealand, agreed to by France and Canada. If you want to watch my show at 8 p.m. Eastern, please do. Until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.